Hi everyone, and thank you for joining today's video. This is a continuation of the video series I have where we're trying to create a self-hosted architecture. This is going to be focused on how to have a typical environment that you would normally get through cloud providers and run out of your local environment, whether that be on a cloud provider like AWS or OVH or something like that, or if you want to run it at home. And in this part of the video series, we're actually going to be talking about the email gateway, which is this box right here. All right. Now, why is this important? Well, what I've noticed and what this allows you to do is really make things very flexible for you. Let's say that your email server goes down, for example, maintenance, outage, whatever. This gateway will actually accept the traffic for you and hold it until your email server is back. Or let's say that your email server is located in a certain data center or at home, and as I'm sure some of you have noticed by now, or some of you will discover in the process of trying to follow this video series, many ISPs in residential areas block port 25. So even though you have an email server, you can't get your traffic. An email gateway can be put somewhere on the internet, and it would route the traffic back to your email server or email servers. So it makes things very versatile for you. Not to mention, it also, in my case, it also helps with putting a layer between your email server and the outside world. So it just helps with mitigation of, tons of spam coming in. Even though email servers have that built in, I find that having an appliance that's dedicated makes that a little easier. I go with the Proxmox PMG, but really you could use whatever you want. The reason why I choose Proxmox PMG, the email gateway, is because it's very versatile. You can set it as a container within a Proxmox hypervisor, or you can download their ISO and run that as a bare metal OS as well. It also has a very robust UI for spam and really intuitive UI to track emails as they go back and forth. And in the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you at a high level how to set it up. You can really get into the weeds, and if there's enough interest, I can definitely do follow-up videos. I'm not going to show you how to install Proxmox PMG. There's lots of videos how to do that and lots of articles, and quite straightforward. What I will be doing is I will be showing you how to configure it to run this architecture. Okay, so again, I'm going to show you on PFSense how to set up for access to port 25. One of the reasons why it took a little longer to make this video is I was actually looking for an ISP that was residential that would have port 25, and your mileage will vary there. You may very well have to put this in the cloud. Okay, but in my case, I was able to find one. I'm trying to keep this as close to that ethos of running it yourself, owning it yourself, having complete control. All right, so this PFSense server will have port 25 open to it. It will then route the traffic to the email gateway server, which will then in turn, in a future video, not in this video, route the traffic to the email server. Okay, so that's essentially what we're going to be showing in this video. And so at the end of this video, you will see me send, not from the email server, but one of the servers behind this network here, an email out to the email gateway, which will then send it out to the internet, and then I will get that email. Okay, so, and I'll show you what that looks like in Proxmox PMG. So let's go ahead and dive in. I did want to add one more thing. I just remembered right now. Usually I enter all this information as I'm doing the video. This time I'm going to show you guys what it looks like after the fact. The reason for that is if I were to do that with DNS takes a little while to show up, and you guys are going to be waiting for paint dry, and it's the equivalent of watching paint dry in a video. So in the through the magic of video, I'm going to have done the work in advance. I will show you all the steps I did, and if you follow this document, it would more or less be cut and paste with obviously the instructions that have a UI based component. You'll have to refer back to this video as I run those exact same steps. If I miss something, please let me know. More than happy to update the document. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. I'm just going to go back down here. We've discussed these before, and we're going to go down to the part for the Proxmox PMG right here. So we're going to go ahead and update PFSense. So again, I recommend you download the document just so you can follow along. I'm not going to keep the document up because I want you guys to have a full screen of what I'm doing. So let me go ahead and bring that up here. All right, and this is our PFSense. This is the same one I've used for all the other videos in the series. And if you remember, I said that's what I was going to do. So I will continue doing that. Okay. So if I go back to my notes here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create the alias. All right. So I'm going to go to firewall alias, and here's my PMG server. The reason why I do this is, let's say that my PMG server IP changes. I don't want to remember that IP across various rules, and this applies to other servers that I will be adding. I try to make them as aliases pretty much whenever I can, because I don't want to put in IPs in the firewall rules. I'd rather have one location for that, and it updates it across the board. So you would go ahead and click on add, and then you would put in all the information that I put in the document. So if I bring back the document for a second here, let me get rid of the Chrome browser. Here we go. So you see, I would fill up the name. This is the alias that we would call in the firewall rule. A description, something to make it easy for you to know what it is. It's a host, and then the IP or FQDN for it, which would be the IP of our PMG server. In my case, and you'll see it on here very soon. And then I would click on save. Okay, so let me go back here. Let me edit my existing alias, and you'll see all those lines in there. So if we come back here, alias, PMG server, let me edit it. So here we go. The name, I named it PMG_server, and I put a gateway. I put the description, Proxmox mail gateway. It's a host, and this is the IP that I'm using for this particular setup. And I give it another description. Why not? And I clicked on save. All right, we'll just give it a second, and it'll ask us, hey, you sure you want to do this? Yes, I applied changes. And again, one of the valuable things about using an alias versus putting the IPs directly in the firewall rules, the net rules, is that let's say that your Proxmox PMG changes its IP for whatever reason, or you have other rules that are linked to this. Let's say you have other services running on that same server. You update it once, or multiple ports on the same server. You update it once here, and it would update it across all the rules. You don't have to do it more than once. All right. So then after we do that, we have to add the NAT rule. We're going to go to firewall. We're going to go to NAT. Okay. And what did I miss? Yeah, sorry, it's right here. I'm going blind. And this is my rule right here. YouTube Proxmox, the SMTP server. So if you go back to the document quickly, just to reiterate, because this is the Proxmox PMG server is the internet facing portion of my email system, it's going to have port 25 open. Okay, so PFSense is going to open port 25 and NAT the traffic through this guy. Okay, so let's go back. All right, here we go. And let me go back to my browser here. Let's click on edit here. And so if you follow the document, you'll see the interface. We're going to keep it as WAN because that's where the traffic's coming in. I'm using an IPv4 protocol, TCP, and destination where the traffic's coming from to meet this rule. Coming off the WAN, the destination port will be port 25. Again, your mileage will vary when you do this with an ISP if you're doing it in your own home. Typically, if you're in a data center, that's not restricted. Some ISPs do allow for that traffic, some don't. So just keep that in mind when you set this up at home and you message saying it doesn't work. Find out if your ISP allows it. All right. And the redirect target IP is my PMG server. So I'm not putting an IP address, I'm putting my alias. One more note. I am showing you guys how to do this. That also means that you have responsibility that to not abuse port 25. if you start spamming from that IP, you will be found out pretty quick, and your ISP will either block it or they might sever your service. Again, this is for you to do at your own discretion. You have now been made aware. If you're going to do this, the purpose should be to run your own legitimate email server at home, not for sending spam emails or phishing or anything like that. You will get shut down, and you don't want that. Okay, so I go ahead and enter my alias, put a description, my redirect port, again, port 25, and I will go ahead and save that. Okay, let that finish, and I apply the change. Okay, so that pretty much does everything we need to do on PFSense. All right, I'm now going to go to my Proxmox PMG, and as I was saying, I did the install. I'm not going to show you how to do the install. There's a lot of videos on that. If there's enough interest, you guys want me to do one of those videos, sure, I'll do it. But for the sake of expediency, I'm just going to show you guys how to configure it after you install it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to the PMG. So default port is 8006. Okay, whatever your IP will be, port 8006. That's the internal address. For obvious reasons, do not expose that port to the internet. You do not want people trying to modify this, because if anyone does get access to do this, they have the ability to send emails as you. Okay, and you really don't want that. So let's go ahead and configure this guy. So let's go to configuration, and we're going to go to mail proxy. Okay, and the first thing we want to look up here is going to be the let me just go to my notes here. We're going to go to relay domains. Okay, and in my case, if you guys remember from the beginning of this video, the domain that I'm using for this is youtube, so youtube.ak'tu.onl, which is the domain that I registered for this whole thing. Okay, so this means that this PMG server, and you can add as many domains as you want here, but I'm using this one just for the sake of this video. It will be looking for these domains and it knows that it's relaying for these domains specifically. Okay, so you can add more or less as is required for your setup. Okay, and then we go look at ports, and this is just an FYI. You can change this if you want, although I don't recommend it. External, leave that to 25. Don't touch that. Internal, port 26. You can change it to wherever you want. I tend to leave it at 26. Okay, just because it's easier to remember, because it's like that right off the bat. Okay, and then let's go to options. I tend to leave this. You can update that if you want, but I typically speaking don't touch it. If you're following my notes, the next thing I'd go to is DKIM, and let's go to that. And I tend to enable DKIM. This is just to add another layer of security for your email. Okay, to make sure that you are not going to get rejected when you're sending emails. If you receive this email, if you're just using this to receive emails, not going to be a problem. You don't need to enable it. It doesn't hurt though. So we go ahead and create, and then you create the domain. So again, I'm using youtube.ak'tu.onl, and that's the domain there. And then after I do that, I can go ahead and enable DKIM signing. So this would go from no to yes, which would then allow me to view the record. Why is that important? I will show you guys a little later, but typically speaking, you're going to take this whole thing and put it into the DNS server that we had set up in an earlier video in this series. And you're more than welcome to go back to that video to see how we did that. It's pretty straightforward if you follow the document that I have. So we will be adding to it, and again, if you're following on the PDF, you'll see where that's done. Okay. I also tend to enable TLS as well. Same thing. We create a domain. We enable TLS, and this is just another layer of security. Another thing that I recommend you do is creating trusted networks, so that if anyone, and again, this is your choice, it depends on your network and how you're going to set things up. If you have, say, a whole bunch of servers that you want to be able to send emails out, and you don't really care about them necessarily authenticating to your email server, you can send them straight to your email gateway, and they can send those emails out. Okay. Again, use that with discretion, knowing that if you are using it to spam, you will get shut down. Okay. And if I look at my settings here, so that's DKIM, that's DLS, network, transports, I leave font. I don't touch for the sake of this video. And so everything else on here, I'd leave the same. I wouldn't touch anything else. And that is essentially, at a high level, all you really need to do to set up Proxmox Mail Gateway out of the box. Okay, so I will come back to this in a moment after I do the DNS stuff, and I will show you guys what it looks like to have emails to track. And here's a few that I did for testing. Okay, I will show you guys what that looks like in a bit. So let's now go to our SSH session to our DNS server. Okay, let me just bring that up. All right, this is it here. Let me just get to it. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and sudo up. And let me just bring up my notes. Okay, so if we go to my notes now, so we're now going to go to VI. I use that for editing. You can use what you want, but I tend to be a little comfortable with VI. And we go to the path of where your DNS zones happen to be. I'm going to CD to it so you guys can see. All right, these are all the files that we had created when we set up our DNS server a few videos back. My domain is this one. This is what I called it, so this is where I'm going to go. Okay. I'm going to paste. And if you look, let me just make this a little bigger here. Okay. We look at the entries that I made. I have an A record, and I called it Y2 mail. And it's an A record, and this is the IP that I'm using. Okay, I did one for mail. This is if you, in theory, had more than one mail gateway server that you had, and say for redundancy, and you wanted to use one or the other, you can do two. I'm using the same IP for both, doesn't really matter. And then these are the all-important MX records. So these are the DNS entries that tell the DNS servers of the world and your email servers of the world, if they want to send you an email, these are the servers it's got to go to. Okay, and this is the domain that they're going to be going in for. This is the type, and this is the priority. So 10 is a lower number, 20 higher. Pretty intuitive. And then here I'm telling it what the A record is for this MX record, and it'll point back to these. And I'll show you whether that's important in a moment. Also, the DKIM record that I showed you before in Proxmox, and let me just get rid of the SSH session here for a second. I'll go back to it here so you can see what I'm talking about. This guy right here, DNS record. This guy right here is the one that I have in the document, and it's also the one in my DNS server. So let me go back to my SSH session. Let me bring that up here. Okay, I quite literally copied and pasted it. It's right here. Okay, this is what if I send an email, this is what authenticates me. Okay, and then we have our SPF record. This is also an important one, and the reason why this is important is because it is essentially telling other mail servers on the internet, hey, only these servers are allowed to send emails on my behalf. Okay, I have two. If you have 4, 5, 6, you have them all in here. But if your emails, if your email servers, if your Proxmox mail gateway servers or any relay servers or any servers you have sending emails on your behalf for your domain are not listed in your SPF record, a modern mail server will bounce it and it'll never arrive. So very important. And that's a TXT record. Okay, this is for that domain. And here's my DMARC. Okay, and I tend to add this in. This is so that if anyone tries to send an email and impersonate my domain, or if I won't need to see if emails fail, this instructs other mail servers to send me the results of emails that were sent on my behalf from my mail servers. If anything's failing, you'll get a report within 24 hours from those mail servers. In a future video, I may show you guys what that looks like. For the most part, it's kind of boring, kind of dry, but if you are looking to troubleshoot and diagnose why your emails are failing to arrive at certain mail servers on the internet, this tells you why, or it helps you figure out why within about 24 hours. Okay, so once I put in all this information, okay, I go ahead and I save it, but I escape. All right, and then once I've done that, I can go ahead and restart bind. So system ctl restart bind 9. Okay, once it's restarted or reloaded, you can also do a reload. This is now on the internet, and as the notes in my PDF document show, all right, be patient. It takes, I put 48 hours. I usually find it takes within 15 to 30 minutes, something like that. But some DNS servers around the world take a little longer. So be patient to see that information propagate. Okay, so the next part of the video is, well, how do we make sure that it works? Okay, well, let's look at our records. Okay, so if I do a dig, which is a more advanced version of NSLOOKUP, for the domain, and I look for MX records, you know, the first one we can do is do a dig for the domain itself, the MX records, and see if they show up online. Okay, so if I do a dig, there we go. So we got the 2 that I had put in there along with their priority. And I can also check for my SPF records. And there they are. So we can see the servers that are part of the SPF record. And then if we do the DMARC, we should also see that come up. There you go. So all 3 come up. So theoretically, at this point, this server is now ready to start receiving emails and sending emails, very importantly. Let's take a look at something like what's my ip.dns and see if it shows my records propagating. And let me get rid of the terminal. And so there's my MX record. Let's do a dig for it. And there you go. See, it's propagating all over the world. Some of them haven't quite propagated yet. I've been playing with this before the video started just to make sure everything was fine. So some of these DNS servers may not have propagated these records. But either way, there's enough of them around the world that a user will conceivably reach it and be able to send emails. Okay, the server is live on the internet. So guys, please be kind to my DNS server. If I see there's abuse, I'll just go ahead and turn it off. This is not my production server. This is what I'm doing for testing. However, if I see people asking, hey, can you do a test, send me an email, I'll send you guys an email from my my server, or if you guys want to test sending one, as long as I'm not inundated with like 50,000 requests, which I doubt I will, and it's within the first week or so, I'm more than happy to play along with you guys, assuming this environment's still up, just so you guys can test this out. I'm more than happy to play with people and show how you don't need you know, some big honking server out on the internet to do this. I'm running this now on 2 very small machines. Okay, about 8 gigs in total is what I'm running for all this, 4 CPUs, and this would work for your average home user. Okay, all right. So if you're continuing with my document, after I do all that, I show instructions as to how we can actually test this service. All right, using command line, which is the reason I want to use command line is I want to see all the logs of what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going back to my SSH session here, and let me bring it up on my end so I can follow along here. I would go ahead and install postfix and mail utils. And you'll have to forgive me here. That should be lowercase. I already installed it on this server, but it's the same idea. And then we would update these lines in the main.cf file. And I just realized I didn't put the name of that file, so you'd be lost. But I'll show you on here, and I'll make sure I update the document. Postfix main.cf. This is the file. All right. So a lot of this stuff, if you know what you're doing, you're probably not watching this video to begin with. I would leave it to default. Okay. The part that's important for you will be your host name, which is what it shows, your destination, which is this right here, which is the domain that you're using, and then very importantly, your relay host. And if you remember, I did internal of address 26. So that means that when this guy sends an email, it's going to go to my relay host and use it to send the email out. Okay. And if you're looking at my command after this, I'm going to go ahead and restart and enable postfix. I don't think I've actually done these two. So this is a test box I have. This is actually my DNS server as well, for this video series. And then we can do the test of sending a mail itself. So if you look at the command I sent, or the last command I have in the PDF document, and go ahead and press enter if I put that in there. And what this command is essentially doing is my subject is test send, and I'm sending it as this user. And the reason I'm doing that is because the domain is important. If your domain is not correct, it'll get bounced by the destination mail server. And then where I'm sending it to, this is my general inbox for inquiries, and I'm doing a semicolon. I'm also tailing the mail log just to see what it does when I do this. So when I do that, it'll say CC. If I want to do a CC to someone, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to press enter. I'm going to put an email here. So this is the body of my message. To test sending an email to my inbox, to my general inbox. And then when I'm done, I'm going to do a Control D. All right. And that will automatically bring up the mail log, and it'll show you what it's doing. So if we take a look, here we go. It's showing it's sending it from this user. Okay. And it's going to info at my general inbox. And look at this, the relay. It's going to go from here to port 26, and it shows it as submitted. So has the email arrived in my inbox? Soon, I guess. But we can see what the Proxmox mail gateway was doing, and this is something you can do if you're running this for an organization and someone says to you, "Hey, I'm sending emails, but they're not arriving." You can go, "Well, when did you send it? Let me check the mail gateway." You go to tracking center. I didn't bring it up here for you guys to see it. My apologies. There we go. So again, in Proxmox mail gateway, and here is the last email I just sent right here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and expand it, and it'll give you all the details of what it did after it received the email. Okay, so it received the email. Okay, and it's sending it to another mail server on the internet right here. And status sent. So now if I were to look at my inbox, and I'm not going to show my inbox here, but if I were to look at my inbox, I would see this email. And to make sure I'm not lying, I'm going to go take a look. And lo and behold, I do have it. Again, I'm not going to show my mailbox, but you can see that there's no bounce back. And you're more than welcome to try this for yourselves and confirm. And if you want to try send me a message to this mail server, you can. There is no mail inbox, so it'll keep it for a few days and then bounce it back, but that's it. And I can actually show you what that looks like. So if I send myself an email, I'm actually going to reply to it. Actually, that's the way I'm going to prove to you guys it's working. Just give me a second. Let me get to my other screen. And let me send this back to myself. So let's just give it a second, and you will see in here there will be a reply from info@ak'tu consulting to test@ytube.ak'tu.onl. Let's do a search here. Let's give it a minute or two. There it is, right here. That's pretty fast. So it accepted it. It's deferred, and the reason it's deferred is I have not set up an actual mail server. So this proxy mail gateway is going, who do I send this to? Like, what's your server, Brian? You know, where are you sending this to? So as you can see here, it sent it. Deferred right now because it can't connect to this mail server here. It doesn't exist right now. I'll have to create it. But it did get received by this mail gateway. Okay. So at a high level, this is essentially how you build the starting point of your mail infrastructure. It's not as scary as it sounds. You don't have to use a bind DNS server. I know many people are going to have something like GoDaddy or OVH for your DNS, and you would essentially just add the entries for your DNS into those services. I'm just showing you what it looks like if you're self-hosting even that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I will be trying to send this. I'll be trying to do the other video of this series, the actual email server, a little sooner. My apologies again. It's taken this long to do this video, but one of my struggles was finding a ISP that I could use for the port 25, and I found someone that was gracious enough to let me do this for this video. So yes, thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Take care.